The gentle steam rising from your morning oatmeal hides a truth far more corrosive than any sugar rush. A chemical used to kill weeds, a powerful herbicide known as Roundup, is entering your bowl with every spoonful. What if the breakfast you chose for health is quietly poisoning your family, without pain, without warning? In the same moment you reach for your trusted box of Quaker Oats, European regulators draw a definitive line. They have effectively banned the sale of many conventional American oat products, deeming them unfit for consumption. This isn't about flavor or packaging or even sugar content, it's about a single terrifying molecule. It's about glyphosate, the world's most popular weed killer, and the scandal that splits the Atlantic. The shocking reality is that what is legally served in American kitchens could earn an instant recall across the ocean. Why does the European Union protect its citizens from something your government says is perfectly safe to eat? Stay with us to uncover the evidence, the double standards, and the silent war being waged on your breakfast table. We will peel back the industrial layers to reveal the unsettling reason why your favorite oats are caught in the crossfire. Before we dive into the dark heart of this regulatory disaster, please take 1 second to subscribe to our channel. Your subscription empowers us to keep fighting for transparency in the food industry, exposing the secrets corporations desperately try to hide. And if you want to know which food you should never eat again, comment "poison plate" below right now. Do that now, because the truth about your oatmeal is about to fundamentally change the way you see breakfast forever. End of hook. Transition to main body. Strict 3-4-line paragraphs. The scandal begins not with the Quaker brand itself, but with a foundational chemical known across the agricultural world as glyphosate, the primary ingredient in the omnipresent herbicide, Roundup. This compound was originally championed as a breakthrough in weed control, a revolutionary product developed by Monsanto, now owned by the massive pharmaceutical and agrochemical giant, Bayer. Its molecular structure is designed to inhibit an essential enzyme pathway, the shikimate pathway, necessary for plant life to thrive, effectively desiccating and killing weeds right down to the root. But here is where the story twists, weaving its way from a farm field treatment into your humble breakfast bowl. Farmers discovered that glyphosate could be used not just for clearing fields, but as a desiccant, a chemical agent sprayed on crops like oats just before harvest. This process, known as pre-harvest desiccation, artificially speeds up the drying process of the grain, allowing for a quicker, more uniform harvest, which is crucial for maximizing profit and efficiency in industrial agriculture. This practice, while highly efficient from an operational standpoint, dramatically increases the probability of high chemical residue remaining directly on the edible grain. When the herbicide is applied so close to the final harvest, the oats do not have enough time to naturally shed or metabolize the compound, trapping the glyphosate deep within the grain structure. It is this specific, late-stage application method that forms the nexus of the entire Quaker Oats controversy, linking a farming technique directly to a major public health fear. International health agencies have been sharply divided on the true danger posed by this residual glyphosate. The World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer, IARC, famously classified the chemical as probably carcinogenic to humans in 2015, a conclusion that sent shockwaves through the global food industry and spurred thousands of lawsuits. This classification provided the first definitive scientific validation for public skepticism, suggesting a potential link between the consumption of such residues and increased cancer risk. In stark contrast, regulatory bodies like the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and the European Food Safety Authority, EFSA, have historically maintained that glyphosate is safe when used according to instructions, often citing industry-funded studies. This fundamental disagreement, carcinogen versus safe pesticide, creates a chasm of mistrust between the public, who read the IARC's findings, and the regulators, who largely follow the EPA's and EFSA's complex risk assessments. The very foundation of what constitutes safe food is fractured by two opposing scientific and political philosophies. This regulatory divergence is the critical mechanism explaining the title's core premise, the extreme difference in what is deemed legal on either side of the Atlantic. The United States operates under a risk assessment model, generally allowing higher residue levels, called maximum residue limits or MRLs, until definitive proof of harm is undeniable. This framework often favors agricultural and industrial efficiency, giving the benefit of the doubt to the chemical's safety profile until overwhelming evidence suggests otherwise. In the U.S., the EPA has set a relatively permissive tolerance level for glyphosate residue on oats at a staggering 30 parts per million ppm, a figure that is astronomically high when compared to independent health benchmarks. This high MRL means that the vast majority of conventional oat products sold in American grocery stores are technically compliant with federal law, insulating major manufacturers like Quaker Oats from regulatory penalties, even when internal testing reveals substantial contamination. This legal shield is why the product is legal here. The European Union, however, adheres to what is known as the precautionary principle, a philosophical and legal framework that dictates that if there is a reasonable suspicion of harm to public health or the environment, protective action should be taken even in the absence of complete scientific certainty. The EU's MRL for glyphosate on cereal grains, including oats, is exponentially lower than the US standard, set at a maximum of 0.1 ppm for many food products and sometimes even lower, depending on the specific food type and processing. This razor-thin margin is what creates the de facto ban on conventional U.S. oats. When American-grown oats, treated with pre-harvest desiccation, are tested upon import into the EU, their glyphosate residue levels routinely exceed the ultra-strict European MRLs, triggering automatic rejection and a ban on sale. While the Quaker Oats brand is certainly sold in the EU, the products sold there often use different, locally sourced or more strictly controlled oats that meet the dramatically lower MRLs, ensuring the final European product is radically different in its chemical profile. The true public spectacle erupted not through governmental action, but thanks to the Environmental Working Group, EWG, a non-profit American activist organization dedicated to environmental health. Starting in 2018, the EWG commissioned a series of independent laboratory tests on popular oat-based products, results that were instantly devastating to the industry's public image. They meticulously tested dozens of products, finding glyphosate in nearly every single sample of conventionally grown oats. The most damning results consistently targeted products from the Quaker Oats Company, the undisputed market leader in oatmeal. Their tests revealed certain Quaker products, like the Quaker Oatmeal Squares breakfast cereal, contained glyphosate levels nearing 3,000 parts per billion, ppb, or 2.8 ppm. Crucially, the EWG established its own health benchmark, arguing that anything over 160 ppb was dangerous for children's health, making the detected levels 18 times higher than what they considered safe. Quaker's corporate response was predictable and consistent. They admitted to the presence of glyphosate residue, but defended their products by pointing out the legal technicality that their levels were significantly below any regulatory limits set by the EPA. This defense, while legally sound in the US, did little to soothe the fears of millions of parents and consumers who were facing the reality that their children's breakfast was legally contaminated with a probable human carcinogen. The brand integrity of Quaker Oats suffered an irreparable blow in the court of public opinion. This PR disaster quickly cascaded into serious legal consequences, with consumer class action lawsuits filed against Quaker's parent company, PepsiCo, alleging deceptive marketing. These lawsuits argued that by labeling their products as 100% natural, or wholesome, the company was misleading consumers about the synthetic chemical contamination present in the oats. Although these cases did not necessarily result in a corporate admission of the product being unsafe, they forced the company into costly settlements and required changes to their labeling practices. The scandal ignited a powerful and ongoing conversation about the fundamental ethics of food production, questioning the industry's reliance on chemical shortcuts for profit maximization. Why, consumers demanded to know, was the pre-harvest desiccation technique necessary if it introduces a potential carcinogen into the final food product? This was not an essential part of the oat's growth, but an expediency for the industrial harvest calendar, trading consumer health for logistical ease and reduced farming costs. The controversy also shone a harsh, unforgiving light on the laxity of American food regulation compared to the stringent standards of the European system. The public began to view the US EPA's MRLs not as a guarantee of safety, but as a political compromise influenced by powerful agricultural lobbies, prioritizing the profitability of Bayer Monsanto's Roundup product over the principle of minimizing human exposure to potentially toxic substances. This difference in regulatory philosophy effectively makes the US a testing ground for chemical consumption that the EU actively rejects. In response to the scandal and the ensuing consumer backlash, a massive and profitable niche market emerged: certified organic and glyphosate-free products. This market segment has experienced exponential growth as consumers vote with their wallets, bypassing the conventional supply chain entirely to purchase oats from companies that commit to stringent third-party testing and abstain from the use of synthetic desiccation chemicals. This consumer movement has created an economic pressure point where regulation failed to act. This growing preference for chemical-free alternatives highlights the paradox of the current food environment. Safety is increasingly a luxury item, not a basic standard guaranteed by law. Families who can afford the higher price of certified organic or glyphosate-free oats are protecting themselves, while those relying on more affordable conventional brands like mass-market Quaker Oats remain exposed to residues deemed unsafe by international scientific bodies and foreign governments. It underscores a troubling inequality in public health protection. The ripple effect of the Roundup scandal is vast, influencing not just oat consumption but the entire grain market. Farmers are beginning to face market demands to change their pre-harvest practices, as large food retailers and manufacturers are pressured to secure sources of glyphosate-free grain to meet consumer expectations and avoid the public scrutiny Quaker endured. This shift is slow and costly, but it demonstrates the powerful leverage of informed consumer demand over deeply entrenched industrial practices. Furthermore, the saga has escalated the legal battles surrounding glyphosate, prompting new lawsuits and heightened scrutiny of buyers' role in downplaying the chemical's health risks. The long-term implications are already unfolding, with courts delivering multi-million-dollar verdicts to cancer patients who successfully argued their illness was linked to prolonged exposure to Roundup, solidifying the IARC's stance and challenging the EPA's long-held safety classification. The legal landscape in the U.S. is slowly catching up to the European skepticism. The fundamental takeaway is that the ban is a necessary consequence of two irreconcilably different views on public health. The EU views high levels of a probable carcinogen as an unacceptable risk, setting limits so low they functionally exclude products reliant on the pre-harvest desiccation technique. The US views these levels as an acceptable risk, prioritizing agricultural efficiency under the assumption of safety. The same box of oatmeal, therefore, represents either a nutritious breakfast or a legally contaminated foodstuff, depending entirely on which continent you are standing on. Ultimately, the choice falls back to the consumer, armed with the unsettling knowledge of the food standards war. Do you trust the U.S. regulatory body, which allows high chemical thresholds for convenience, or do you follow the European precautionary principle, opting for lower residue foods? The Quaker Oats scandal serves as a stark, powerful reminder that in the globalized food economy, the power to protect your health often lies not with the government, but with the labels you choose to read and the questions you dare to ask about the shadow chemicals hiding in plain sight. The controversy continues to fuel the debate on global food sovereignty, prompting calls for unified international standards that prioritize health over profit, ensuring that what is safe for a child in Berlin is equally safe for a child in Boston. Until that global standard is reached, the story of the banned oats remains a cautionary tale about where our food comes from, how it is harvested, and the hidden costs of convenience on our health and our collective trust. It is a story still being written, one spoonful at a time, at every breakfast table across the world, prompting us all to look closer at what we are truly feeding ourselves.